Hello, I'm United States Senator Saxby Chambliss, and thanks for tuning in for my weekly update on YouTube. Here in Washington this week, we're working on several different matters, but primarily the issue we're concerned with is the reauthorization of three provisions of the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was enacted after the events of 9/11 and have given our intelligence community and our law enforcement community the real tools that they have needed over the last decade to ensure that America and Americans remain safe and secure. These are not overreaches into our private life, as some have attempted to indicate, but are truly measures that allow the intelligence community and our law enforcement community to observe those people who are bad actors or who are acting in a very suspicious way and that have an international connection. So the authorization of the three provisions that we have under consideration, in my opinion, are absolutely necessary because of my experience over the last decade within the intelligence community to allow our law enforcement community as well as the intelligence officials to gather the right kind of information they need. There's one of the provisions that I really want to bring to your attention because it's been somewhat controversial. And that's the reauthorization of Section 215 or the Business Records Act. Some people feel that because banks have the authority and are required to review suspicious activity accounts and report those accounts to law enforcement officials or to the Department of Treasury, that gives banks some sort of special right to view personal bank accounts. Well, that's simply not true. What this law does require is that when someone has suspicious activity in their bank account and they have some international connection, then the banks are required to make a report to the Department of Treasury. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. If there's an international transaction in excess of $5,000 and it's not carried out by, let's say, a student who is traveling abroad or a tourist who's traveling abroad that does banking business inside the United States, but it's somebody in, say, Yemen who has never done any business in the United States before, and there's a transaction going back and forth, or that it's a banking transaction with, say, somebody in Afghanistan or Iraq, and there is reason to believe, and that's an important phrase, that activity may involve some potential terrorist activity, then banks are required to report that activity to the Department of Treasury. There are those who think that we should shift the burden, that the burden should be on the government to go to banks and say, we suspect somebody of potential terrorist activity and we demand to see their bank records. Well, in my opinion, that does have the potential to invade the privacy of individuals. Plus, the government doesn't always know who a potential terrorist is. We know that there are hundreds, maybe thousands of terrorists inside the United States who at some point in time would like to do damage to America and Americans. But the government does not know who these individuals are in every single instance. So if they are having money wired into their account from a Yemen or a Pakistan or Afghanistan, then I think without question there is reasonable reasons why the banks should be required to make those reports. There's another amendment that we're voting on that is a gun rights amendment. Now, look, I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I have a 100% voting record on gun rights issues. And so let's don't have any misconception about my strong record in support of the Second Amendment. However, there is a provision, again, within the Patriot Act that does allow gun records to be acquired by the federal government when and only when there is some suspicion and connection of international terrorism to those gun records. There are grand juries in America every day who have access to gun records simply by issuing a subpoena in a domestic criminal action. That's done routinely. Under the Patriot Act, it's much more difficult to obtain gun records on someone who has an international connection and is suspected to possibly be involved in some illegal activity. So when I want to extend these particular rights under the Patriot Act, I do so with the full and complete knowledge of the fact that Second Amendment rights are not going to be in the least infringed by the Patriot Act. It's been in effect for 10 years. I personally have been involved in the oversight of this particular section, and I can tell you that I know of no case, and we review these regularly with the law enforcement officials, where that particular provision of the Patriot Act has been abused. Another issue that I know is of great concern to Georgians today, and frankly all Americans, and that's the high price of gasoline. It's gone as high almost as it did a couple of years ago when we saw a severe shortage of gas, particularly in the northern part of Georgia. And here today, we're back again to these high gas prices, and at the same time, the United States of America has no long-term energy policy in place. There is simply no excuse for that. And I don't blame just this administration for that. I do blame previous administrations too for not promoting and seeing to the enactment of a long-term energy policy for the United States of America. We have more natural resources in this country than any other country. We still have the ability to drill oil wells in this country, but this administration is heading us off and not allowing the drilling in the United States of America that they should be allowing. Secondly, we know for a fact that we have more natural gas that's already been found in the United States than there exists in any other part of the world. And yet, oftentimes, we don't have the ability to access that gas. So I am very concerned about the lack of a long-term energy policy. And when somebody asks me, what are you doing about the high gas prices? Well, I've been trying to do something for literally all of the 17 years that I've now been in Congress. And that is, we need to drill more in America. We need to be more efficient in our use of petroleum and petroleum products. We need to develop alternative energy as well as alternative vehicles that are powered by things like batteries and natural gas to wean ourselves off the import of foreign oil. And unfortunately, what happens is when gas prices spike, like they did a couple of years ago, people get excited, as you are now. And then when gas prices fall back down because supply and demand requires that they do so, then everybody kind of forgets about the issue until the next time we see a spike. Well, we don't need to forget this time around. It's imperative that Congress act on a long-term energy policy that will allow for more drilling in the United States of America, that will allow for more efficient use and alternative fuels to be developed in the United States. That's the way we solve this long-term issue of energy and the supply of gas and oil and other energy resources in this country. Trying to find some solution in the short term, frankly, is going to be very, very difficult. But if we start working on it now, then we're not going to have to worry about that next spike because it won't be there. In conclusion, say that as we approach this Memorial Day weekend, I want to wish every single Georgian a very happy Memorial Day, and don't forget why we celebrate Memorial Day. Let's give thanks for our men and women in uniform who today are putting themselves in harm's way to make sure that we are able to go out and enjoy a great, safe holiday in a safe and secure America. And those men and women who are protecting us in faraway places like Afghanistan and Iraq today are not going to be able to be with their families. So please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Keep their families in your thoughts and prayers. God bless you, and may God continue to bless our great country, the United States of America.